Hello, my name is Marion Richard. I completed my PhD at the Institute of Economic and Social Research at UCLouvain and at the Paris School of Economics. My research focuses on the impact of conflict and climate change in developing countries. When we think about the impact of global warming and climate change on human societies, we know that this impact will be greater in developing countries that tend to be located in already warmer places and are also less resilient to the impact of climate change. Developing countries are also more vulnerable to civil conflict and insecurity. Half of the global population that lives below the extreme poverty line resides in countries that are classified by the World Bank as fragile or conflict affected. My thesis, which sets in the context of the Sahel, explores how households which are facing both climatic shocks and conflict-related insecurity are able to cope simultaneously with both shocks. In this research, I consider indirect exposure to conflict through migration networks, whereby households may be affected by conflicts that may occur far away from them, but occur either in their migration destination or along the routes to reach these migration destinations, thereby limiting their migration opportunities. While this is only one of the many ways through which conflict will affect the well-being of households, it is an important channel, as migration is essential in developing countries for households to diversify their source of income that may be unstable in agricultural-based economies, and increasingly so due to climate change. To answer this question, I use in the first step a gravity model to predict migration flows between villages of Mali and each of the 9 regions of Mali. For each of this pair of village in Mali and possible destination, I compute the shortest route using OpenStreetMap and then count the conflict that will occur along this route. The results are indicative of strong substitution across destinations. That means that households decide to send their migrants to destinations that are either safer or easier to reach in safety. But is it always an option to substitute to other migration destinations? To answer this question, in the second step, I compute for each village of Mali the average index of insecurity on migration routes. That is, I compute the share of routes that are affected by insecurity, giving more weight to routes that were more important for this village before the start of the conflict. I also find that conflict located between rural localities and pre-conflict migration destinations reduce the effect of drought on the probability of temporary departures for poorer households. This implies that poor households that would send a migrant away to either reduce their expenses or increase their income to cope with climatic risk are no longer able to do so in case of conflict. And this also results in increased food insecurity. During the last European elections, some parties have been focusing their campaigns on funding walls and fences to block migration into Europe. If the EU wants to achieve its stated goal of reaching the UN Sustainable Development Goals and tackling climate change, it should instead prioritize on promoting population mobility as an adaptation strategy to climate change in developing countries. I am now a postdoctoral researcher at the Nova School of Business and Economics, where I conduct research with a team working on the effect of ocean acidification on coastal societies in the global south. Meanwhile, continuing my research on the effect of conflict and climate change on migration in developing countries.